Hey, thanks for coming to Albury Brothers in Florida. I'm Jeff, I'm the owner. Let me show you how we make these awesome boats. Come on. I love what I do. We build all our boats in 4 stages through 4 departments. The 20 and 23 take about 2 weeks in each department, and the larger boats 3 weeks. So this is our lamination department here, and that's our assembly department at the end of the building. We have 4 buildings actually, so this is just the first one. All our resin is put down by hand. We don't own a chopper gun, so an easy way for a boat to get heavy is spraying in chop strand mat. Everything we do is hand laid. And a lot of boat builders that say they're hand laid actually are just hand laying structural glass. This is core cell. Our boats are solid glass in the bottom, but from the sole up, we use core cell with knitted glass to create strength with lightness. We want the weight low and in the middle of our boats. Come on, I'll show you. These guys are skinning the cap for a 23. Bonjour, how y'all doing? All right, we gel coated this morning. Making a part is kind of like making a cupcake or a pound cake. We take a mold, we put the PAM in it, or the mold release in this case, then we're building the part from the outside in. Gel coat first, then this is what we call the skin coat, first layer of glass. You can see how the chop strand mat is loose there. It's a print blocker, it's a binder, it's fiberglass, but it's not like super strong fiberglass. Boats that are of kind of low quality are made with a lot of chop strand mat. So they're gonna roll this out. It's pink because there's tracer dye in the catalyst of the resin, so we know that it's gonna kick off in 45 minutes. After this dries, they'll come back and sand it, grind out any voids, and they'll put 2 more layers of chop strand mat with resin. Those rollers are to roll out the air bubbles. And we only can put 2 layers on at a time because this has an exotherm reaction when it kicks off, meaning it gives off heat. So if we put down 3, 4, 5 layers at a time, we couldn't work fast enough to get it all down, but also it would get so hot it would distort the part at a minimum. There's the stringer molds for a 23. Those are some empty molds. Here's a half-built interior for a 23. This is a good place to see knitted fabric above the chine. So this is where you stand. You're looking at it upside down. That's the hatch and the foredeck. These are the forward seats. From the floor up, we want to get light. Very strong in tensile, but very thin. Where we need mass, we add core cell. This is foam with great elongation and compression properties. Now you look at this and go, oh, it's just foam, that's like cheap, but this is about $3,000 worth of this in each 23, and it stands the test of time. We order it cut to fit, we order it perforated so the resin spears it and kind of holds it in place, and we can make sure we have a good bond because we can see the resin coming through. That's what they're getting. That would be the next thing. They're going to put this down in core bond, and after that dries, they'll close out all the kerfs because you can't have any micro environments. You can't have any voids. So they'll close that all out with core bond. They'll sand everything smooth and cover it in fiberglass. Here's a 23 hull. We started this yesterday. You can see that there's blue gel coat in the bottom. You can see it coming through and white in the sides, kind of a traditional look. You can also see the difference between having 1 layer of skin coat fiberglass on that side and 2 on the second day or day 2 on this side, where it's still wet. It's layer 2 and 3 of chop strand mat. We put it on in 2 sections. You can see where it crosses over the keel of the boat to the chine. 2 layers. They're doubling up at the stress points in the boat. As this dries, when the guys finish that cap, maybe take lunch, they'll flip this over the other side using the chain hoist on our small boats, bigger contraption on the big ones. But they'll flip it over, and then they'll put 2 on that side, 2 on there, 2 in the transom. Let that dry. Tomorrow they'll come in, grind everything, repeat the process with structural glass. Another thing we use is called woven roving in the bottom. When you use this knitted biax, it's strong in tension, but it doesn't have great flexural properties because it's thin. We want to, so you have to use that core cell to kind of create the I-beam effect, get some mass so it doesn't flex. In the bottoms, where we want to stay totally fiberglass with no coring at all, we use this old-fashioned 24-ounce woven roving. It sucks up a lot of resin. It's got a lot of fill, and it gets nice and thick, about 3/4 of an inch, in fact. And the reason we don't want the core in the bottom is twofold. We don't want the weight. We do want the weight in the bottom to keep her driving through the waves, but the bottom is where you get those cycles of pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. And just like an airplane, after a while, things can let loose. So, delamination or core shear. And, our boats are kind of built to last for a good long time, solid glass bottoms. There's another core we use in the transom called Coosa board. As opposed to being 5-pound, it's 26-pound. And the reason you need the heavier core in the transom is so when you clamp that outboard engine on, it doesn't crush. I often get the question, how we use vacuum. And vacuum's powerful stuff. We use it to hold the hull in the mold while it's curing. The vacuum's on, so it doesn't, the shrinkage doesn't pull it away. This is our hardtop molds. This is the top and bottom of a hardtop. So these are two tops, the bottom somewhere else. But when we build the top and a bottom, we take the bottom and flip it into the top and vacuum them together so they're really strong. We also vacuum the interiors into the hulls, which we'll see down in assemblies, getting ready to do that. A lot of the core that's on the flat, we don't bother vacuum bagging it because we have a big tile roller. We can just roll it down and let gravity work for us. But like in the transom, where we don't have gravity, we vacuum bag that Coosa board into the transom. There's a choreography to all this, as I talked about the 2 weeks and 3 weeks. This assembly crew will demold the parts. Let's say we'll start a hull 3 days before we'll start an interior, 3 days before we'll start a cap. And these guys will demold them in order and work on them. So you can see they have one hull that's completed and ready to get an interior while they're starting to work on this hull, everything that goes in it. This is kind of cool where you can see the 23, and all our boats look kind of the same. The big top hat stringers in place. The fuel tank is made of aluminum, coated with coal tar epoxy, and completely foamed in. And see, we go through the trouble of resin coating the foam. That's 4-pound foam, so it doesn't absorb any water. There's a channel underneath, so water can pass through the keel and, migrate through the boat without getting stopped. Everything's trimmed perfectly, so any water that land on top of the tank would sheet off. You can see the woven rove print through in the bottom, solid glass, and you can maybe see the core cell in the side. Maybe this side you can see a little better. The sunlight's hitting it. See a little checkerboard pattern in there. So the sides are very light, where the bottom is heavy and firm. These stringers have been glassed in from keel to chine several times, and also these are filled with 2-pound foam, which stiffens the boat up and deadens the sound. Lastly, this is the Coosa board transom material. We leave the flanges on because the boats are still curing and we don't want them to shrink and the interiors not to fit. So we leave these flanges on till the last minute, stiffens it up. Let me show you what happens after they've spent, how many days?
About 3-4 days.
So 3-4 days from that period to this. You can see the flange is cut off, and you can see now the wiring harness is in, the hoses are on the tank, and more particularly back here, this boat has 2 live wells and 2 fish boxes. So you can see a lot of pumps, bilge pump, and so forth. You see the spray rails are on, they're through bolted, glassed on from behind, and they've spent a lot of time prepping the interior, which is hanging above the boat. This is the insulated foam on the fish box. This is the rigging chute for all the engine controls, the bottom of the live wells in the rear. They've cut the flange off both, and they're fitting it. So it could take half a day of them going up and down, getting the seams perfect, a perfect match here, making sure there's no burrs on top of the stringers or anything, and to get it ready to be vacuumed together. So let's drop it on down in, guys. By the way, when we create the spec for your boat together, it's going to go to each department, highlighted what needs to be done by that department, what they have to focus on. So this is the assembly department for Mr. blah blah blah's boat, and one day this will be yours if we earn your business. One thing I want to point out is how nice and loose the sides of the liner are intentionally. When this gets finally fitted, what's going to happen is when everyone's happy with the fit, it's going to go up in the air. We're going to have 4 guys jump in this boat with notch trowels and polybond, and we're going to smear it on the sides, top of the stringers, the transom, everywhere this inner liner touches this hull. Now this is a fire drill because this stuff is catalyzed. One guy's going to be here mixing up buckets of it. It's going to be catalyzed. You got 40 minutes to work. It's going to drop down in. Everyone's going to run around with duct tape and clamps, sealing this up airtight right in there. We have a fixture that goes in that keeps the proper beam. We're going to attach a big vacuum right there. And once everything's sealed up and that fixture's in, we're going to throw the switch, and this whole thing's going to go together. And after it cures a few hours later, it's a monarch, one piece. Solid as a rock, no voids, no lost space in the boat, and, try and destroy it. After this is all cured and the tape and all that comes off, now we're going to spend a day trimming this perfectly, both parts, nice and fair, so that cap can go on and the rub rail can go on and a few other things. Then we put it on a trailer and we're going to take it over to the paint and finish department, make it come live. Now we're at the paint and finish department, but before we go in there, let me show you how the small parts are made. So we keep the small parts away from the big parts in the big building because there's so many of them. It would just get, be a traffic jam. But you can see all the hatches are done here and live wells and 20 and 23 consoles. All right, let's go into the paint department. Straight from assembly, this 23 came over yesterday. And we have a junky old trailer we bring it over on. And we get in there and we start doing all the finish work. We don't cover anything with trim. So every edge has to be done straight. Make sure that you don't cut your hands. Gel coated, finish. Keegan, spin that hatch around. So all this has longboarded, radiused, painted, and so on and so forth, everywhere on the boat. If you come around here, you can see this transom joint, because we don't cover it with a piece of stainless like most everyone does. We have 8 hours just getting this dialed in and perfect, and trued up, and smooth. Figure about a week worth of finish work here, and then we'll paint it. We'll put the boat on jack stands and use a laser to simulate the water line. We know exactly where they sit in the water. We'll put on stands, laser out the water line, tape it off, bag the boat with plastic, in this case paper, and we'll shoot the waterline stripe. We'll also paint the bottom paint using epoxy barrier coat and 2 coats of bottom paint if that's what you like. And when it's done, this will go over to rigging, which is in the next building. But before we get there, remember, it's not only the boats that need all the finish work, it's every small part, like I talked about that hatch. All the consoles come in here. There's a console, one in the back. Every hardtop, every hatch, every swim platform. So we got a couple guys here that just work that stuff. Fairing, finishing, painting. The choreography is we try and get the consoles done about 2 weeks before the boat that they go with over to the rigging department so they can work on it before the boat gets to them. Here we are in the rigging department, and as I mentioned, hold on, Clayton. Clayton builds all our hardtops. So it's right out of finish. Clayton's cut all the holes for the spreader lights, electronics box, speakers, all the parts are here. He assembled the electronics box, courtesy lights, and so forth. He'll get all that done. Then he'll take the hardtop legs we get from Birdsall, flip them over and put them on upside down. Blind fasten from the other side, 5200 also. So this is going on, this is the top for the boat that's getting the waterline stripe painted on. The console for that boat's over here, follow me. Tim's laid out the console for that 27. We took a picture, sent it to the customer, and he made his tweaks where he wanted things, asked questions, and so it's just the way you want it. And now Timmy will cut all the holes, put in the wiring harnesses, switch box, breaker, everything you can do to this before it goes in the boat. And then by the time the hull comes over here, this will go right in. There's room for 3 boats in here. So as you can see, we have these two 23s, which we've been working on for 2 weeks and are actually ready both to leave. This is a really nice Bahama blue hull. The customer ordered a trailer for this one. This one's on one of our shop trailers, and it's one of our runabout styles. Not a particularly popular style, but really beautiful, well executed in black. This 23 actually is our bay and blue water version, skiff version. So we have a smaller console in here with a soft top. It's for people who want more room in the boat to fish around. And over here is our latest model. We call it the 33B for bracket. We closed the transom, put a bracket on in response for people asking for triple engines and more speed. So as another benefit, we gained some extra cockpit room, a larger live well, and so forth. But she's a beast, and she runs 60 miles an hour. Welcome to our 4th and last building. This is where the boats come after sea trial. They're ready for pickup, ready for delivery. This is our showroom. This is where we keep our charter fleet. This is where we can broker your used boat. But here you see there's several 23s here and a 27 ready to go. This one we're delivering tomorrow. You know, our hulls have this reputation for a great ride, and it's, of course, because they're built really well, but it's the shape of the bottom, it's the balance of the boat and the weight distribution. And so what you have is a really long keel, long water line, and that's like a hot knife through the seas. Because the weight of the boat is centered, this kind of stays in the water and cuts through. We're above the water line, she's very full forward. It gives you not only a lot of room in the boat, but it's reserve buoyancy, so she won't spear a wave. It's not, a lot of, the faster designs, they'll have a reverse shear and a cutaway forefoot and the beam will taper. That's all about getting all the weight aft so the boat's up on top of the water and just kind of skimming along on the back of the boat. And that's fine for high speed, that's what you need to do. But since we're not trying to achieve that, we can have more drag, more hull in the water. So the boat tracks straight and all this. But when the seas get rough, she works naturally with the waves. If you lose power, she'll just kind of bob like a cork. She won't take on water. She won't spear waves. Just gives you a very strong feeling of safety and security. What we do is we sit down and we spec out a boat. Either CJ and I are seamless. We both know everything each other's doing. So you can always deal with either one of us and it will cross-pollinate. But sit down at my desk or CJ's and we'll both go through the price sheet, turn it into a spec sheet for you, and then that'll flow out to those build orders into the shops. If you move forward, you'll give a small deposit, and CJ will order all the materials, and we'll start putting it into the production process. In fact, we use this to track, our production, remind us that we're here. We're very proud of our long-term employees. Most have been with us. You've seen them. Most have been with us many, many years. We try and take very good care of them, and these pictures here to remind us to do it. We have everybody's boat that's in process, what you went through: lamination, assembly, paint and finish, rigging, final finish, sea trial, punch, and complete. And we just kind of move these magnetic things to the next stage. And so we're on top of everything and coordinate it here. And then one other kind of interesting thing before I turn it over to CJ to kind of give you a little tour of each of a 23 and 27 is this is where all our boats are. that were built in America. Of course, we build them in Man-O-War Abaco as well, the smaller boats. But we, here in the U.S., we build them for the Bahamas too, the larger sizes. But all these pins represent where they are, different models. Some of the pins represent a dozen boats. But you can see Florida is very strong all the way around. Mobile, Gulf Shores, strong. But our boats go all the way to Texas, Panama, Costa Rica. We've got some in Europe. But Charleston's very strong, a little in Annapolis, New England around Marblehead, and Massachusetts is a really nice market for us, as well as North Carolina, particularly in the south, but also up in Moorhead and all that. We have a lot of repeat customers. We have a lot of owners that own 2 and 3 Albury Brothers boats. Everyone regrets selling their 20 or 23. So most people don't. And people have 2 houses, or they have kids, or they have different missions. So we're really proud that a lot of people own 2 and 3 of our boats.